A very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're located and whatever your time zone is. Welcome to our Chronicles. And this is Rita Gadi, together with a historical figure, I would say, but whose present day presence is actually most valuable to many of the things that we're discussing, to many of the things that face us. One of the finest minds, not just this side of our country, but this side of the planet. I'd like to welcome my good friend, Bono ADAZA from Cagayan de Oro. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
Thank you, Rita, for having me. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all our friends all over the world, wherever they are. It's a pleasure.
Exactly. A lot of people have missed you because it's been quite a while. Last week we just had the replay. Some technical errors, and of course, I had a very bad cough. Not COVID, not pneumonia, but just a bad cough. But that's over now. Anyway, here we are, Bono, and we're facing a number of disastrous events, if you would call it that. I don't want to use that adjective, but there are events that actually confront us on a day-to-day basis. Right now, we are facing, as we have faced, 3 strong storms that have already crossed our country. Now we are being braced to prepare for another strong storm called Pepito on what they call it? They call it a 5th category, which is one of the strongest actually. Packing winds at something like 275 kilometers per hour. Can you imagine that? Okay, so we brace up for this. That's a natural disaster that's we're going to face. But we still have problems of how to be able to weather all of this, weather the bad weather. And then we have the problems of devastations in infrastructure, etc. All of these complaints about flood control. But many of these things, as the president himself has said, ang hirap talaga kasi napakalakas ng mga bagyong yan. Wala na tayo halos magawa. So, are we still prepared? Can we still prepare? Is there still something that we can do?
Yeah, of course, there's something we can do. There are only 2 elements necessary for preparedness, Rita. Having a good leader who knows what to do. And second is to have the money to provide for the solutions to the problem. Ayun ang problema ngayon. They are beginning to be the problems. It's not the storm. Storm is easy to handle. Our people have been subjected to storm, but you need leadership and money. According to George Bush, President George Bush, this is the richest country in the world. You know, why should we have problems with money when we are the richest country in the world? Our problem is on the level of leadership. And sabi nga ni late Speaker Pepito Laurel, kailangan ng isang national leader yung may utak sa bayag at may bayag sa utak. Brains in his balls and balls in his brains. Because first, where to get the money? That's not the problem. All he needs to do is talk with someone who knows where to get the money. And in 1 hour of time, he will know where to get the money. So part of the problem is solved. And the second part, if he knows where to get the money, the 2 problems are already solved. So preparedness is a matter of fact already. Going when the president is ready, when there is money, we have no problem with storm. We have no problem with everybody because these are the solutions to our problems. You know, I heard the president say, when will we get the funds to provide for the aid of these people when there are so many storms? Mr. President, funds is not the problem. I'm not being presumptuous, but call me. And in an hour's time, I'll tell you where to get the funds. Yes, Rita, alam mo, the word impossible is only in the mind. It's in the mind. We don't have access to information about where the money is. You really have a problem. So if somebody says, like ADAZA says, he knows where the money is, why doesn't the president call me? Is it because I'm considered by his cordon sanitaire as an enemy of the administration? No, I'm not an enemy of this administration. Since I was governor during martial law, I said, after the election, everything is over. There's no partition. We cooperate with the government when it's doing right. If it's not doing right, we tell them what should be the right thing to do. Dito tayo sa debate, opposition, administration, nakikialam, marami dyan. We should work together. That's why I'm volunteering to the president that is interested in money. I know where the money is, and it will not be his problem anymore. So, problem
So,
solved.
yeah. Yeah, you know, Bono, we've been talking about this for quite a while, I think for years already, the past several years. You have been mentioning the sourcing of these funds, which even the president knows. Sabi mo nga, alam niya yan. But exactly how to go about it and to get it, is this Marcos funds? Is this the Maharlika fund? Is this somewhere hidden in Switzerland or somewhere in our banks? Or so why can't
No,
it be reached?
the president that's about to ask that question. For instance, we have a client who claims to be one of the trustees of President Marcos.
Oh
I've
wow.
got the documents. One of the trustees. I have 12 clients who are trustees of the late President Marcos. Okay. I went over the document. She has a deposit of $1.3 trillion in one of the banks here in the country, not outside the country. I was telling the people close to the president, okay, there is a certification by the president and the vice president of the bank, the signatures there, that the deposit exists. There is a bank statement that the deposit exists. Why doesn't the president just call the president of the bank? Is this your signature? Is this true? Then if that is true, we have no problem because my client, Rita, is willing to give 70% of the 1.3 trillion the bank consistent with the letter of instruction of the late President Marcos. She'll only get 10%. Of course, the lawyer will also get 10%. That's why I'm interested in solving this problem. Now, we are having a problem. Why? My client died 3 weeks ago. So I'm
Oh my
having a
goodness.
problem. He died because she's an old woman already. Complete documentation. Then why don't just the president sit down with me maybe for 30 minutes? We'll ask the president of the bank, is this your signature? Does the money exist? If she says it exists, we have no problem. The president has 70% of the 1.3 trillion. If she says that's not her signature, okay. Forensics, NBI and FBI. If this NBI and FBI will say that this is your this is your signature, you will be in jail and I'll get the 1.3 trillion in your mouth, whether you like it or not. It's simple.
Is this
But
a private bank, Bono, or a government bank?
ano,
Is it a
yes,
private bank or a government bank?
one of the biggest banks in the country, one of the three biggest banks. Okay, I'll tell you another client of mine, $800 million
That's a lot of
in one
money.
three major banks. He's also a holder of money belonging to formerly to the president and now to the pilot of the president, who said is the brother of one of the girlfriends of the president in the past. Okay. I went to the bank because the proposal was they'd like to get 40% of the deposit and 60% to my client. You know, I talked with the top man of the bank. I said, well, why don't we reduce your share to 20%? Because this money does not belong to you. This belongs to my client. Sabi niya, attorney. So we can document that. Please write us a letter. Okay, I wrote a letter. This is the same person who told my client that the bank will get 40% and 60% for for her, for him. Result. You know what was the answer, Rita, in the letter from the same person whom I talked with? Said, the account does not exist. My God. Ano ba ito? Why can't the president, these people to Malacanang, talk to them? I'll present the document and to confirm whether it exists or not. If it exists,
You know, Bono, with that, it will really solve a lot of our problems because that's also the
yes,
biggest headache that we have. The budget is already I think it's already consumed or almost to be consumed for at the end of the year. And the fiscal year starts only sometime January. The president has not even signed yet the 2025 budget. So whatever it is, we are making this announcement on this program. Whoever may be listening to us, please have some contact with the office of the president because we have HOMOBONO ADAZA here who has a client that is willing to not negotiate, but to deal with whatever documents are still there to be able to obtain the the sources of those funds. So we leave it there, and perhaps you could repeat this before the end of the program. We've talked about this a number of times, Bono, and you know, this has been floating actually over the past 38 years. There were so many attempts at trying to reach the Marcos supposedly hidden wealth, etc. And I've always talked about this in many of my um, statements in the past. As far as documents are concerned, we still don't have the actual documentation of where that money is located. If it is here in the Philippines, how come that all these years none of the banks have talked about it? And why is it that well, wherever it's coming from, it has not been sourced by the past governments, as a matter of fact, who have held power over many of these finance institutions? So, be that as it may, we are announcing now that Bono Adaza has a solution for our financial problems as far as the government goes. And all it needs is for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to get in touch with Bono Adaza for them to talk about this. So we leave that as it is and hope that it would come soon. But we are preparing also for other things, Bono. One of them, as I've said, well, if you said, as you say, if we already have money, then we don't really have problems as far as climate change is concerned. But it still is a problem. Now we go to this problem that we have to prepare for. Prime commodities, inflation, all of this rising cost of basic needs and basic services and all of the basic requirements to just have a proper diet and a proper life. So that's it. How do we prepare for this? Inflation is rising, and especially now that we're having problems also because of all of this devastation that has happened with our agriculture.
I have also a solution to inflation, Rita. The president under the constitution is the most powerful person in this whole country. And the real solution to inflation, why doesn't he impose price control? Price control, talk with the manufacturers. You people are taking advantage of what is happening. That's why it's increasing. The price is increasing. Milk, for instance, before I used to buy it for 94. Now it's 116. That's crazy. Before a can of uh, can of corned beef,
Sardines. Corned beef, okay.
I used to buy it for 81. Now it's 106, 101. Ano ba yan? Even the most basic thing, rice. which this administration promised will be brought down to 25. Now it's 60, 65, 70.
It's 49,
He's
and then brought it down to 48 pesos
and
actually now. So
control the prices. Talk with the manufacturer. You cannot run away with profits here. Our country is suffering. Bring down the price. For the corned beef, okay. That's the same formula you have. Why are you increasing it by about 20%, 25%? That's not right. Talk with
I,
these people.
I think there is actually price control. As a matter of fact, several announcements have been made several times in the past and now at the present, especially in areas which are hit by these disasters. But it is still not enough that that the government announces price control. There are other factors which well, industry is coming up with, as far as many other expenses that go into manufacturing. So it it's not just that easy, Mono, when the
No, no,
government says there is a price control.
I contest, I contest your assessment. If we have money, okay, subsidize production, import in the meanwhile, rice, bring the price down to 25, subsidized by the government because we have money, okay. The electricity, for instance, the oil, okay, nationalize the oil industry here, and you people bring it down to a certain level. Ferdinand Marcos did it. Why can't his son do it? Why? You know, in Malaysia, they keep on saying that water is free. Dito sa atin, hindi free ang water. When I was governor of San Oriental, I was opposition governor. Water was free. Why could I do it on the provincial level and they not doing it on the national level? Nationalize it. Nationalize it. Even electricity, nationalize it. Oil, nationalize it. Okay, at the beginning, there will be displacement. But with money and utak and bayag, you can solve the problems. These are the only major components in the solution of any problem.
Yes, Bono, but
So,
we have the APIRA law, Bono. Most of these services and basic needs that you're talking about have been privatized. Electricity, is now in the hands of private individuals. Our water system is also privatized. I mean, all of this have been because of that law that has transferred the ownership and the management and the administration of all of this to the
Rita,
oligarchic group. So
the key point
you
to
have
discuss
you
with
have to rescind that law
the key point
first.
which I can reveal to you now, no? Because the secret to this formula is my number one solution. I don't like to mention it here. But if the president talks to me, I'll tell him, okay, sige, do this. You have a good secretary of justice. He'll do the rest of the job. And then you'll have a committee in the cabinet that will help you run the country. Because as of now, the members of the cabinet are not doing their work. They're publicity lang. Senator, publicity. Congress, publicity. We cannot solve the problems of this country with publicity. There's a way of doing it. And I'll tell it to the president if he will give me 30 minutes of his time. If he can't do it, I'll talk with somebody else who might
Well,
be able to do it.
let's look forward to that, Bono. But meanwhile, if you're not yet talking to the president and we still don't have that money on hand, that is the preparedness we have to consider for ourselves. So here we are, as I've said, with inflation and so forth.
And the
Price
problems.
of price of petrol will also has already increased, as a matter of fact. And you're talking about nationalizing it. We had it before. We don't have it. It's like saying that let's get to the future by walking backwards. When I say walking backward means going back to 38 years ago. If we have to face the future by looking at what it was 38 years ago. But as you said, it's not being done the way it should be done. So that is why we have to consider how we as individuals and the nation as a whole can be prepared. Now, that is as far as inflation goes. But then there are other aspects, likewise, other concerns that we have to be prepared for, you know. So one of them is, well, foreign policy is one thing that is hanging over our heads many times now because of what's happening in the South China Sea. And then there are, I don't know if you could call this murmurings that there could be changes or there could be something more drastic. But whatever it is, we have a new president in the United States of America, and we all know that the kind of foreign policy that the American government has affects the rest of the world. So how do we prepare for this? You know how Trump led his first administration and also his campaign. Now that he's re-elected, how do we prepare for him?
Well, I think Trump is not a problem. Our problem is right here. We allow people to interfere into government affairs, especially these foreigners. We can tell them, I'm not saying to go to hell. We can tell them to make decisions for their own country. We should be able to make decisions for our own country. We are not prepared. That's the problem, Rita. For instance, we are not prepared on the level of national defense. That's why we are being bullied by China in the West Philippine Sea. You know, the fishermen of Zambales are saying that before we didn't have a problem with respect to supply of fish and the price was on reachable level. Now they cannot even fish in the Scarborough Shoal area. So the problem is they cannot fish in the Scarborough Shoal area. Why don't we allow our fishermen to again be able to fish in the Scarborough area? If we're prepared, we should have our Navy. Our Navy, don't rely on other groups here. Our Navy police the area and prevent the Chinese from entering and preventing our fishermen from fishing in the West Philippine Sea. That's a simple solution to the problem. The problem is, what's the national defense doing? What are our planes doing? What are our boats doing? Interview. By God, interview is not the solution. We need action. Action at that level. Imagine, yung isang group na atin ito, mga civilians pa, ang trying to tell them what should be done. The one that should be told, telling everybody what should be done is the government. Put a Navy cordon there, this Scarborough Shoal, and let's take a look what China will do. Let's see what they will do. Let's have our planes fly in the West Philippine Sea. Let us see what China will do. If we have the money, Rita, I assure you, the Chinese, Xi Jinping, will wake up one day that we have more weapons than they have. We'll have more weapons than they have because we have more money than them. We have more money than these people.
You mentioned,
yeah.
You mentioned, Bono, that once upon a time, not too very far away and long ago, we had access to all of those grounds where our fishermen could fish without any harassment, without any bullying, etc. Where did all of this begin? I mean, you know, like if they could fish before, well, why can they not fish now? Because there have been attempts at drawing lines across the China Sea. First, there was China with the 9-dash line or the 11-dash line. And then you had old maps coming up. And then we had just recently two laws that were passed. One is naming that area west of the Philippines as the West Philippine Sea, and some shoals, reefs, and rocks there and islets belonging to us in the West Philippine Sea. And the other one was simply the affirmation of the UNCLOS, which is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So this was recently signed as part of our Philippine laws. But then again, as you've said, there was a time when we could fish openly. But when there was cartographic drawings on the waters, that's when the bullying started because may drawing na. So yung line na yan sa amin ito. And then we also had to draw a line, ito naman sa atin and so forth. So why can we not go back to how it was? And instead of just having cartographic demarcation lines so that there could be this bullying, why don't we just have the conduct of the sea as open for fishermen from wherever? Because the waters do not belong to us. The waters are God-given. You can only draw over them, but you cannot own them.
Rita, you said we'll go back to the past. China has history for its instrument. We are living in modern times. We are operating under the laws that governs countries in the world. Why don't they observe the laws that are operative now? Why do they give us the 9 dash line? That's a long time ago. 9 dash line.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm driving at. Why should we have lines drawn over the waters when it was open before for everybody to just fish? Why can we not have a conduct of the sea for fishermen?
We cannot fish because, in reference to the Scarborough Shoal, the American government sponsored a meeting with the Philippine government and the Chinese government to agree on what should be the conditions in the Scarborough Shoal. So everyone could have access to it. Okay. It was agreed and presided over by the US that Chinese vessels and the Philippine vessels should be out of the area of the Scarborough Shoal so the fishermen can continue to fish. You know what happened? We withdrew all our ships and the Chinese ships remain. So China does not observe the law. It does not observe the agreement. If they want to be a rogue state, we'll take care of them some future time. Not now, because the government is not doing what needs to be done. But it's not an impossible problem. If China cannot conquer Taiwan, why should they bullying us in the West Philippine Sea? Water cannon tayo. May water cannon tayo. I will give them the Malabanan influence. Tingnan natin kung anong mangyari.
China does not have to conquer Taiwan. Taiwan is a province of China, recognized as part of it, actually, with a different administration, so to speak, allowing it to have such. But, it does not have to conquer Taiwan at all. That is the propaganda that is being raised, that China is threatening to take over Taiwan. There's no need for that. We all know exactly how things go as far as former Chinese colonies, etc., are concerned. Hong Kong, Macau, and all of this are examples of this. So too with Taiwan. And in fact, I remember Chairman Mao saying, basta singkit ang mata, inchik yan. So they don't have that demarcation line too, as far as Taiwan is concerned. But be that as it may, Bono, this is really something which is bothersome as far as not only our fishermen, but many of our foreign policy statements are concerned and the way we behave as far as mainland China. And it is something that we will have to consider seriously because China is a neighbor and is rising up to be, if not now, a very powerful economic entity, but also as a hegemon, so to speak, in this part of the world. So it's not just confined to the United States of America. Now we have China also rising up. And we belong to Asia likewise. That's our location. So do you see, you said Trump is not a problem, but then again, you also speak of the interference of those who bother to make all sorts of statements regarding the South China Sea. And that interference is coming from the Pentagon and Washington, and that is where Trump will be located the moment he takes his oath of office. So it does also boil down to exactly how he would view this part of the world. He has mentioned quite openly that he would want to establish peace in the world, no more wars. A gesture that he made when he was president some time back was really something quite radical, but which is very welcome for us in this part of the world, and that was meeting with Kim Jong-un of North Korea and having some agreement with him that he will not be testing missiles, etc. That well, they even signed certain provisions of an understanding between the two countries. To cut it short, what is important here is he made a very strong gesture of trying to establish peace, at least between the United States of America and North Korea, and then eventually perhaps between North Korea and South Korea. But then, of course, he did not get reelected. But for that, at least we should give credit to the attempt undertaken by President Trump at the time. So we would want to believe that he would follow this through, not just what's happening here in our region, but also what's happening in, well, far away in Ukraine, etc., where he would want to put things in order likewise. And then also his meeting with the future meeting with the heads of state, both of China and of the Soviet Union. So that is why I say that there is also a big effect as far as the presidency of President Trump is concerned for this part of a region.
You know, we should study the history of the United States of America. If their national interest is not deeply involved in any of their arrangements, they will desert. They deserted Chiang Kai-shek and China. They deserted Sigmund Rhee and Korea.
They
They
deserted
deserted
Vietnam.
Sihanouk and Ban Thieu in the China. They deserted Batista
Okay.
in Cuba.
Yeah.
They deserted the men in many other areas in the world. So we should be careful with America.
They're also quite aggressive.
We have an agreement with them, but we have to be prepared ourselves because we never can tell that the Americans will also abandon us as they abandon other countries in the world. They are not abandoning Ukraine because it constitutes a very serious threat to the United States of America. They are not also abandoning Israel. And we have to take into consideration Ukraine, Israel, they're all whites and we're colored. So we have to take into consideration the history of the United States insofar as relationship with other countries. If their interest will no longer be present, abandonment yan. Kaya nga tayo dito sa Pilipinas,
So are we
kailangan we should
afraid?
prepare.
Should we prepare for that? Do we fear it? Or should we not instead prepare for it? To stand on our
We
own?
should, Rita, preparing the Philippines for any threat first is money and brains in your balls and balls in your brain. Money is a missing component. Brains and balls are also missing components. But money we can get, and with money we can be prepared. If we're the richest country in the world, according to Bush, we can
But
also be
who is our enemy, Bono? China is not our enemy.
Say it again.
China is not our enemy. I would want to believe that.
China has only one battleship, Rita, one only aircraft carrier, or they have submarines. With the kind of money we have, if we really are determined to get the money, we can have submarines, we can have aircraft carrier, we can
But
have
why should
drones.
we prepare for defense if we can prepare for peace instead?
Yeah, while taking care of the basic needs at the same time. Do you know that in Bukidnon, the Americans have nuclear silos there? They have nuclear
Everywhere, as
silos.
a matter of fact, it's not just in Bukidnon, they're everywhere. We have 10 of the EDCA bases already, and tell me what is in them is something so secretive that we can just whisper it.
We can solve the common problems and solve also the bigger problems. You know, we're talking, for instance, here, somebody keeps on talking about ICC, United Nations, etc. This international organization cannot deliver the goods. Here, we won in the PCA, they cannot deliver the goods. They're only the United Nations, as of now, is controlled by the Arab states. Yes, they're controlled by the Arab states and their allies. And as a matter of fact, the Hamas is deeply involved in the decision-making process in the UN. You know, Jawaharlal Nehru before in 1955 called the Bandung Conference with
Yes.
the idea of having a UN in the East. If if the UN of the present does not behave, and it's not behaving, it's not behaving right. It's always dependent on the Security Council, and there are 5 states there that can veto only one move, and even you have 14 votes in the Security Council, nothing will be done. No, hindi pwede yan. We should get Nero, should revive Nero here in the East and tell these people in the UN if they don't behave, we will also organize the United Nations here. We have the money to do it.
That's a very
And
good
there are
idea, Bono, because the United Nations, as it is, has failed in its mission. It was organized in 1948, thereabouts, precisely after the Second World War, with the hope that there will be no more wars. But then again, as you've said, there is an aggressive hegemon, and whatever interest it has to protect, it will do so at the expense of other nations that it does not care very much about for as long as it can preserve itself. Now, so let's leave it at that. We can prepare if we have money, but why should we prepare for a defense when we can prepare for peace? Now we go
if
to
we don't
another.
if we have no money, Rita, and the correct leadership, will remain as slaves. One day, we will become a province as they go wants us to be a province of China. And then, with the other people here, we will be back as colony of the United States of America. We should not allow that.
I don't think China will invade us because it's not an invasive kind of country. And as I've said, many of the products that we're patronizing are also made in China, so too in America. So why not just go into business as Deng Xiaoping and Chou En-lai and all the rest of this, and together with Xi Jinping now saying, why make war when we can just go into business? Anyway, so let's leave it at that. We prepare for peace instead of for war. If we do have money, that's exactly what we'll have to do. Now, Bono, let's prepare for 2025.
Yeah,
We have
2025
how many
is it
thousands of those running for the Senate? How many other thousands running for Congress, for the House of Representatives? How many others running for governors, provincial board members, mayors, etc.? So, how do
it's
we
a waste,
prepare for this?
it's a waste of money, time, and effort. Solution. Election has never solved our problem in this country. Election. There was an effort to have selection, but the ones who assume the powers after selection also didn't work. So we really in this country should train our sight in trying to choose a leader who knows what to do on day one. Because in the words of Henry Kissinger, if you become president of a country and you don't know how to be president the first day of office, you will never learn until the end of your term. That's
but
the
our
case of many presidents.
but
Si
our
Marcos,
constitution
Ferdinand.
does not have that in its provision that you should have a president qualified. The
I,
qualifications are
I
simply
have, I have yeah, never mind the constitution. Uh, Will it have a new constitution
that's
with the
exactly
new
what I'm driving at, Bono.
in 10 pages now? If there's a new leader in this country based on Section 1 of Article 2 of the Constitution, what does it say? The Philippines is a Republican and democratic state. Sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. Okay, direct democracy, not election, but selection. We did it in 86, but it was a failure because the ones who took over were bad eggs. We did it also in 2001, and it did not happen because we had bad eggs. You know, I feel regretful that I participated on a strategic basis to effect the replacement of president in 2001, 1986. Why? because the people who succeeded them were worse than the ones that they replaced. No, frankly, from 1986 up to now, the only president who had a vision of the country, Rita, and I'll challenge everybody to debate me on this, is Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. Nobody else. The rest have only television, not vision. They didn't have a vision of the country, what they will do on the national level, on the local level, and way down the level on the international level. The president should have a vision what the country should be, what our people should be. You know, our people are, I don't know, elections, they sell their votes. The candidates buy their votes. Comelec cannot do anything about all this. So here, that's where we are. It's about time we start really thinking because election will never solve the problem of the Filipinos. We'll have more dynasties, we'll have more crooks, we'll have more criminals, we'll have more drugs, more of the problems because they cannot be solved like our justice system. Due process, by golly, it will take you ages to have somebody convicted. Take you ages to secure justice. We had a case for forcible entry. Forcible entry. It ended up 15 years later in the Supreme Court. Ano ba yan? Ano ba? We have cases in the ombuds.
Maybe the doors have already been changed and the locks have already been changed and maybe the house has already been sold before you can even have a case on forcible entry. Anyway, so Bono, here we are. We're facing 2025, but the solution there, as you said, are not the elections. What is important is that we change the Constitution. And by changing the Constitution, we put up the system by which we can elect or select into office those qualified. Now, you go back, as you said, one of the best presidents we had was Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. Just a brief background for those who probably are still listening to us and do not know exactly where Ferdinand Edralin Marcos is coming from. But even when he entered politics for the first time as congressman in his district in Ilocos, as you said, Bono, he already had a vision, not just for his district or for Ilocos, but a vision also for the country. In other words, even his first attempt at entering public service and public office, he already knew that he wanted to do something for the rest of the nation. So it very rarely can you find an individual like that. I'm not referring to praising him, but I'm referring to somebody who has the nation, the country, and the people in his heart and in his mind and in the horizon that he is facing. So that is what he did. He ran again until he ran for the third term. And then I think it was President Rojas who told him, you have such great visions that you have in mind. Why don't you run for the presidency? So he had that all along in his mind and in his heart. Now we are looking for people who enter into public office, but what do they have? They only have their pockets open. They do not have it in their hearts, nor in their minds, nor even in their souls. So that is what we mean by having not just the qualification, but the vision. How important it is, Bono, to have a vision. Meron kang tinatanaw na merong kabutihan kang pupuntahan at gagawin. So, 2025, we have all of these thousands that will be parading their names. And now you could see also the advertisements that are coming up. They did this, they were like this, they were like that. But again, it's a matter of selecting, not just electing. Piliin, hindi lang iboboto. Piliin talaga. But you know, it's asking a gargantuan task. Kahit na alam na kriminal ito, kahit na alam na pagkakaparehong apelido sila, bakit iboboto pa nga? So, can we refrain from voting them? What will happen, Bono, if we do not vote for anybody of them?
Which one? Do you have anybody in mind? Yes.
I have a
I
whole
have
list,
somebody,
but I will
I
not
have, I have
mention their
somebody
name.
in mind, Rita, who was a victim of the country, who was balls in his brains and brains in his balls, but I cannot identify him for the moment. It's dangerous to identify him. Very dangerous. But
Yeah.
you never can tell about the seasons. As Ecclesiastes said, there's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to love and a time to hate, a time to be not Ecclesiastes, this is my editing, a time to be in prison and a time to in prison,
And
a
the
time
time
to and a time to build. We will build a new country in this part of the world. One fine day, I never give up on my dreams. That's why the guys, if they want to know a vision that they can use on how to build a country that's Republic of the Philippines, wait for my coming book, New Horizon, a manual to build a country. And you can use that. You can use that. I don't have to use it myself because, I have creaking knees, but unfailing dreams.
And this is where we go now to another concern. While we are preparing for so many things, let us prepare our young people and the young minds. Here we are with education. You have mentioned this so many times, Bono, that perhaps in the first years that the child is exposed to learning, he or she would learn first the value system, good manners, right conduct, and all of this, and discipline. That is where we can prepare. Because right now, it is really beyond our time to look back at all of these people that are running for public office. And what were they before? But we can look now at our children, the infants, those 3 years old. I think they've even reduced the age now that you can enter. Meron ng mga nursery, etc. and all, primary education and all of this. But what is it that they will have to be exposed to? And then we say that perhaps in the first year, you've said this, Mono, in the first years, wala muna yung mga arithmetic, and reading. Aralin muna ang values, discipline, and all of this. The Japan has this Bushido Code, which is practically part of their character upbringing. But how is it here in us? So we go back not even into primary, Bono, not even into the first years of nursery. Let us go back to the family, to the home. So 10 million, ilan ba ang ating overseas workers na
But
sa mga bahay, walang nanay, walang tatay. So is that a family? Doon kasi magsisimula, Bona, that's where it will start. The education, the primary of the children, of the infants. So
that's
what
why,
do we do?
Rita, within the system, you can never have education in this country. We are miseducated every day of our lives in this country. And I'm bold to say this, and I'm willing to debate on anybody on this, that almost all of our institutions in this country are failures. The family is a failure. The schools are a failure. The churches are a failure. Government is a failure. Because if they were not successful, you know, this is a Christian country. Out of 300 members of the lower house, Rita, about 90% are Christian. Why is it that 90%? No, no, not really. Why is that many or the majority are crooks and Christians? Now, I would like anybody to explain to me, does it show a successful family? Does it show successful school system? Does it show a good government? Does it show churches, good churches? No, 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 no. I think if we are going to look at our government officials, our institutions are a failure. Nakakahiya, really nakakahiya.
So where
Very
did all
failure.
that begin?
Even if before Rita, when I was a kid at the University of the Philippines, they're telling me We produce the best. Yeah, the best is 5%. The best of the best 5% of UP. The best of the worst is 5%. The best of the worst are having the time of their life. The best of the best are given an opportunity because they have vision, they have principle. You know, something's got to be done. I think we should sit down together. We people in this country who want systemic change, sit down. After all, changes are constitutional with direct democracy. The Philippines is a democratic and republican state. Sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. As of now, sovereignty resides in this political, economic, educational oligarchs. The sovereignty is with them. The authority is with them, not with the people. People. I'm sometimes
But when we speak of the people, where do the people come from? Where did they begin to become people? They begin
yes,
in the home, in the
family.
family. That is where it all is, actually. Even before they enter the classroom. All of these institutions that you consider now a failure, all of these churches that also you consider now as not answering to what they're supposed to do. Saan ba
Yeah,
nagsimula lahat yan? Because sa tahanan, sa loob ng tahanan sa pamilya. That is where it all begins. And that is where perhaps the care of the individual, the people, that is where the people is coming from. Sovereignty is the power above them, actually. They have that power if they know how to use it. But before they get to know how to use it properly and correctly, it begins in the home. Respeto
you
sa
know,
magulang and all of this. Obedience, discipline, values.
FM had one of the correct approaches to re-education of our people. Every week, because I did that in my province. Every week there was a seminar on all levels. And sometimes they call it eco seminar from up down. Every week, seminar teaching people the correct values, what they should do, and what are the responsibilities, what are the duties, what are the rights. It's about time something like that will be done here again.
And during
And
that time also, Bono, our
including
overseas workers,
including the leaders.
yeah, we're
Seminar
skilled
nila,
workers, yeah.
seminarin natin itong mga, pag wala silang speakers in the seminar, mag-volunteer ako. Members of Congress,
Oh,
members
so much really will have to be done, So that is where it all begins, as I said, in the cradle of the home, with the mother and the father and the family, actually teaching the young the value system. Diyan sana nagsisimula. But we have lost that. We have lost a generation actually because their parents are out earning a living. They send dollars back here so that they can buy the latest gadgets and the latest cell phone, etc. and all. And some of them even go into the latest drugs. So yun ang pinakamasakit doon. How do we bring back the importance and the value of the family? When
no,
parents have to be out of the home, not just out of the home, but out of the country, elsewhere for years to be able to earn, to send money to their children who do not get educated enough in the home at all. So you see, that is where it begins. That is why one of the programs I had before Bono was the care of the soul. That is what we are made of. It's the spirit is what we're made of. The mind, the body, that's taken care of by education, by health problems, by nutrition. But who takes care of the mind? Yan. Who takes care of the spirit? That's where it begins, Bono. And
Rita,
yes.
it reminds me of what my father told. Four of his sons were all lawyers. This is what my father is mayor of over 20 years in our town. And he said, sons, remember this throughout your life. When wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost. But when character is lost, everything is lost. And that's why
Oh, very true, Bono. That's exactly where we're leading on to, and that is where we have to be able to prepare our young people. Character. Character. What is that? My goodness. That is where the value system comes in, actually. Your father is so correct. Mawala ka ng pera, okay ka pa. Mawalan ka ng konting, nagkaroon ka ng konting sakit, magagamot pa yan, maaayos pa. Mawalan ka ng karakter, lahat mawawala. But does it matter now, Bono? 300 people in the House of Representatives. Can you name with one hand, with 5 fingers, those with true character, as we know character to be?
I'm afraid I'll have a problem.
You see? That is exactly how it goes. Bakit
I'll have a
mahirap maghanap
problem.
ng taong anyway? So, that is why we have to prepare. Preparedness. Lahat yan goes back to bakit magiging ganito yung ating mayor, yung ating governor, yung ating representative sa Congress, yung ating senador. Saan siya nanggaling? Anong pinanggalingan? Hindi sa eskwelahan, not the universities, not the diplomas from foreign colleges and all of this, but all the way back down to the home. Doon nag-uumpisa yung character, actually. That is where we prepare.
Kaya nga, Rita, I remember one of the poems I read before from one of my favorite poets, Robert Frost. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep.
Or I
And
sleep.
before I sleep, we have still miles to go before we sleep. And I pray to divine providence that He'll give us the opportunity to be able to reach the goal. No?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is every reason that the Lord has still kept both of you, both of us alive, Bono. So there is a reason for all of this. Way back in the 1960s, we were already working for a new constitution. My goodness. It's 2026, Bono. How long ago was that? All over Mindanao, you were crying out with the Mindanao Alliance. I was all over Cotabato. At 23 years old, Bono, I was already screaming for a new constitution, precisely as you're saying, where it all begins from the foundation of our nation, actually. So, with that, are we prepared? Well, let's keep our fingers and toes crossed that we are prepared for whatever comes. And so, again, a warning. There is a natural disaster that's already within our doorstep. So let's prepare for that. There have been a number of announcements of how we can prepare. And so let us pray for the best that we can be able to weather this weather right now, weather the forthcoming elections, weather inflation, weather all of this. So that's the way it goes. But Bono, you'll be there and we will be together and we shall be working for this. I hope that the president will get in touch with you and anybody listening to us, please get in touch with the president to get in touch with HOMOBONO ADAZA, an old friend of his father, a good friend of the family, a good friend of the nation. Thank you, Bono, for having joined us.
Thank you. God bless, and God bless the Philippines.
Thank you very much to all of you who have listened in all over the world. I received messages coming from Saudi Arabia, from London, etc. Maraming salamat. And we hope we can continue to be able to broadcast exactly how we have to prepare ourselves, not just for the calamities, but for everything that we face on a day-to-day basis. This has been your Chronicles, and this is Rita Gadi with Bono Adaza.